Welcome to What's Up at Work, the podcast that's all about real talk with the company leaders shaping Northeast Ohio's top workplaces. We're diving into the stories, strategies, and sometimes hilarious moments that come with creating the thriving teams that drive the region's most successful businesses forward. Whether it's a CEO sharing their leadership philosophy or an HR exec spilling their best people-first strategies, we're here to give you insights you can actually use to build a better workplace. Hit play and let's talk about what's really up at work. Welcome back to What's Up at Work, everybody. I'm Sam Clyde-Schroeder, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at ERC. And today we're here to talk about one of the trickiest things that leaders have to navigate today, and that is hiring. And we're not just talking about hiring anybody. We're talking about top talent. So the high-performing employees who actually stick around. Joining us today is my good friend and recruiting expert, Blake Babcock, who is the Vice President of Client Engagement at Staffing Solutions here in Cleveland. Blake is here today to, help leaders understand the job market and also give some strategies for how to find and onboard the strongest employees possible. So if you're looking to learn about finding, hiring, or retaining top performing employees, this episode's for you. Let's do it. All right, Blake, can you tell us how you got into the staffing and recruiting industry, please?
Just like everyone else, by accident. I was doing an internship with the Cavs in marketing and thought I was going to be working in the sports industry. And I graduated in June of 2008, which was not a great time to be finding a job. And roommate that I had at the time worked for a staffing and recruiting company and said, "Hey, I think you should interview here. You'd be great at this." I said, "I still do not understand what you do." And here we are.
Yeah, you learned pretty quick. All right, so how did you end up at Staffing Solutions?
So a good friend of mine, Robin Dewar-Shuck, had reached out to me and said, "I'm not sure if you're familiar with Sue Ann Naso and Staffing Solutions, but she is looking for this specific position. She's getting ready to buy the company from the founder. I think you'd be a great fit." Made the introduction, and 5.5 years later, I'm still here.
Let's kind of get into the state of recruiting and hiring today. And let's start by talking about the state of the market as a whole. Ever since COVID, things have been crazy influx, and that hasn't really stopped. So give us the scoop on where things are at right now. Specifically, are we currently in a candidates market or an employers market?
Great question. I'm going to say candidates market.
Why?
And I don't think that's going to change.
Okay.
So unemployment has maintained to be very low. Now, I think COVID changed things for a lot of employees. They started to realize that I don't have to go to an office every day. I can have the flexibility to work 100% remote or at least hybrid. And I think employees really started to take ownership of their careers and their lives and that work-life experience to say, "Hey, I'm just not going to let you dictate everything to me." So,
yeah. And okay, so if we're in a candidates market, what does that mean for leaders trying to hire?
It's dicey, right? I think, one of the things that we always ask the employers that we're working with is, "Tell me why this is a great place to work." Mm-hmm. And they'll give you the generic, "Well, we have a great culture." Well, I need you to quantify that for me. Have you really seriously thought about that for your organization? Why is this a great place to work? And employers need to take a serious look at that and ask their current employees, because those are the people that are going to tell you the real answer, not from the top why you think it's a great place to work.
That's so crazy. I mean, unique value prop. It's so crazy how the recruiting funnel follows. It's like a mirror of sales. It's like if you can't communicate why you're special, you're not going to get anybody in the door.
Yeah.
If you can't communicate why you're special, you're never going to make a sale. That's really interesting.
Well, and the other thing too is with technology continuing to advance, look back 10, 15, 20 years ago, we're not putting ads in the paper anymore. Mm-hmm. You have the ability for candidates that can see your brand, because they can look at your website, they can look at your social channels, they can look at the individual profiles on LinkedIn of the employees that you have. And they know a lot about you prior to even having a conversation. And when I say they can know a lot about you, it's the perception that they're seeing from online, which may or may not be real, but candidates have a lot more information now. Also, they can be proactively reached out to. So with LinkedIn, Indeed, candidates are getting hit up constantly by firms like ours, by internal recruiting teams. They're just getting bombarded with opportunities. So how are you going to stand out when it's so crowded and it's so noisy for candidates?
Mm-hmm. And if you're looking at like everything that you hire for right now, what's the hardest job to fill right now?
Great question. I don't think the hardest job right now is one that does not have clarity. So what I mean by that is, what is the role? Do you have a very clear picture of what the ideal candidate looks like? What does the onboarding look like? What does success for that individual look like? What does the training and development for that employee look like? The ones that say, I need an accounts payable person, and that's all the information we have, that's very difficult. What types of technologies do they need to have experience with? What does the entire team look like? What does training look like? Just the surface level, I need X is not enough information, be it for us or an internal team.
Right. And I mean, okay, so we have what's not working. What strategies do you see like your best clients, your most successful clients using to get those positions filled?
It is the clarity. It's knowing exactly what it is that they're looking for and having that defined prior to going to look for it. Because one of the biggest mistakes that we see is, I just want to see one more candidate to compare. Why? If you've said this is what the ideal candidate looks like, and Sam fits all of that, why are we not making an offer? Why are we waiting to see Sam 1A or 1B? We're wasting time. And you could lose Sam in that process.
Right. And especially if you're dealing with the candidate's market.
Absolutely.
Right. You have no leverage in that situation.
None.
And for the record, you actually placed me at ERC. So
that is true. Yes. Yes. I give you a hard time about not saying that enough. So thank you for bringing that up.
God bless Staffing Solutions. And thank you, ERC, for not looking for Sam 2.0.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about now, like, what if we're looking to make a good hire. Comp and benefits are one of the most important things that at ERC, we hear all the time and we have to deal with on the employee and leader side. How does it affect recruiting?
Significantly, because we really try and educate not only the client, but the candidates that we're talking to. Here's what the entire picture looks like. So if, let's just use round numbers, and a client is willing to pay $60,000 for this specific position.
Then what?
Well, you're talking to a candidate and they say, well, I'm currently making $65,000. Mm-hmm. I'm not willing to take less. Is this position at $60,000 actually less? What are you contributing to your benefits at your current employer? This other opportunity at $60,000, what is your benefit cost there? Perhaps you are closing that gap a little bit. You're currently driving 45 minutes, 3 days a week. Well, this other opportunity at $60,000, you're driving 20 minutes, 2 days a week. So we try and help the candidates through that process to understand, here's what the total compensation looks like versus just looking at that salary number. And employers do that as well. When we have the first conversation with them about why this is a great opportunity, I need to know about the benefits. I need to know about the flexibility and schedule. I need to know how many days on site versus hybrid, because those things really matter to candidates.
Absolutely. And it's that total rewards package and distinguishing like, okay, yes, hard salary is this, but think about all of the soft money that you're making from the contributions to benefits and even just some of those things that you noted. People don't think about that. They see a number on the page. And then, if you're able to communicate that as an employer, that makes a ton of sense.
Absolutely.
Okay. So can you give some strategies, I guess, for people out there who are struggling with this? What can they do to better attract and retain talent?
Clarity on what the job is.
God, that's the word of the day. Clarity.
Have I said that 7 times?
No, I mean, it sounds like it's the biggest problem that you face.
It is, because it is the old adage, you'll ask a hiring manager, okay, we're hiring for this position. What are you looking for? And they say, I'll know it when I see it. That's not acceptable.
No,
that's not
helpful.
I need to know years of experience. I need to know the specific technologies that they have to have used in the past or that they'll be able to learn. Like, are you going to train them on this? And defining what the ideal candidate looks like. Then we need to have the conversation about transferable skills, because one of the things that has forever been a problem is we need the person that's doing this job right now at a company that looks like ours. And that's just not realistic. We need to expand the candidate pool and look at transferable skills so that we can go out and solicit candidates that maybe have not worked in our industry, but they can 100% do this job.
Right. That is just so, I mean, I think that when we've been hiring, even, it's been like they need to have a background in, say, learning and development. I'm like, no, they don't. No, they don't. Let's go find somebody who is in a look-alike situation. It doesn't have to be in this specific industry, because you'll never find that like perfect angel of a candidate.
Yeah. One of the things that we typically see that in is sales. And in speaking with one of the sales coaches that I work with, she's been in the staffing and recruiting industry for close to 40 years, had owned her own firm, and is doing consulting now. And she asked me, do you know what the top 5% of salespeople in the staffing and recruiting industry's background is?
What?
Customer service.
Really?
None of these individuals had come from our industry.
That's interesting.
So that the proof is in the pudding there.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite sayings is, if we have data, let's look at the data. If all we have is opinions, let's go with mine. I forget what CEO said that. I did not make that up. But.
No, I mean, that's a good, I fully believe that. But I like the data too, data-driven decision making.
Yes. Well, and ERC is the expert with data. And I think that is something that organizations need to look at. What does the comp for this role need to be? What does our employee benefits, what do those need to look like? What type of training do we need to provide? What value do we get to our employees in our organization? Let's just look at the data. Right. Because it's out there and you're collecting it. Thank you for all your hard work.
No plugs for Staffing Solutions, but can you tell me why, like, what employers need to look for when they're weighing the cost benefit of using a staffing firm like Staffing Solutions? When should they use somebody, and when should they use their internal resources to hire?
$1 million question, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
literally.
first, yeah.
Literally, according to our conversation
earlier. The first question
earlier.
I always ask is, do you know what it's costing you to hire this person on your own? Typically, organizations do not know the answer to that question.
Right. Cost of time.
Cost of time. So a very simple metric is time to fill. The position is open, and you can track it either to the point of offer or to the point of start date. And when I say to point of offer, that offer being accepted. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple different ways to track it, but pick one and do that, because you need to know what it's costing you. Then you have your internal recruiting team's time. How many recs do they have right now? What are you paying Indeed? What are you paying LinkedIn Recruiter? Are you going to job fairs? There are costs to that. The other thing to look at is, how long has this position been open? Oftentimes we run into situations because we're getting the call when it's way too late. Mm-hmm. This has been open for 6 months, and they're still unsure of, I don't know if I want to pay you a fee to fill this role. And that's where there is internal issues related to that. Well, who's doing the work right now? Well, it's okay, we have other team members covering it. Are they super excited about that? What level of stress has that put on the rest of the team to cover that work? So there's a lot of different things to look at. But one of the other things you asked is, a lot of times people come to us because it's a capacity issue. Our internal team already has too much on their plate right now. This is an important role. We need it filled, and we need it filled quick. Another reason could be expertise. If it's a role that is a little bit higher level and hey, we don't have a LinkedIn Recruiter seat and we need to fill this controller position and we need it done quickly, we're doing that all the time. We can knock that out much quicker than you doing your first controller search. So it could be a specialty and skill set or just capacity. Also looking at, what is your recruiting process? Because often I find organizations are not doing the proactive hunting that we will do. The job gets posted and you're then relying on the ideal candidate finding you.
It's passive, yeah.
It's a passive effort. There are internal teams that are doing that proactive outreach. So that is not, I'm not saying every organization is doing that, but That's something to look at. How do you train your internal recruiting teams to do that proactive outreach? And it is a skill set, because there is a Boolean search string that you need to put together. There is the marketing component to it. So when Blake reaches out to Sam on LinkedIn or on Indeed or sends you an email, what does that message look like so that Sam gets back to Blake and says, I'm very interested in hearing about this opportunity?
Okay, so if we're talking about now staffing solutions, in a lot of situations, you guys don't get paid until an employee sticks around at the company for 90 days. Is that right?
We get paid when the employee starts, but there is a 90-day guarantee. So if they are terminated in that 90-day window, we then replace them at no additional
so
cost.
let's talk about, what do? You have a vested interest in keeping the employee at the company throughout that early-ish onboarding period. What do you do, or what best practices do you see that really help employees get that runway and stick around?
I'm going to use the word clarity again.
Oh my God.
Setting expectations with the employee that is placed and with the company on what does that first week look like? What do the first 2 weeks look like? And then beyond, do we have clear expectations for that individual so that they can come in and do the job that is expected of them? Humans need clarity. They need communication. They need things documented. We can't just say, okay, you're starting, here's the phone, start making calls.
Right.
That doesn't work. We need clarity and expectations to be agreed upon, because so often, and I'm sure everyone at one point or another in their life has experienced this, you start a job and in the first week you're like, this is not what I was expecting.
Totally. I've left jobs for that reason. Yeah.
It happens a lot.
And I mean, it's just, so you guys help with that sort of thing. Do you?
There's
work with
only so much
employers?
we can do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But it's educating the client and ensuring that the candidate is in agreement and understands what those first 2 weeks look like.
You're almost playing middleman,
beyond that, yes.
brokering it.
And we have regular check-ins too. So we're going to check in with the employee and with the client. How did the first week go? How did the first 30 days go? So we're checking in to ensure that both parties are happy and that there's no absence of communication, because there's been times that being the middleman, we can bridge that gap. Oh, this isn't going well. I'm not sure if this is the right role for me. Well, Sam, did you talk to your boss about this? No.
Right.
Perhaps we should have a conversation with your boss. Perhaps.
So you can jump in and kind of help save and support your clients as well. That makes a ton of sense.
We're actually life coaches.
Of course. Yes, Blake. Excellent life coach to me as well. Okay, so if we're looking at now the role of technology, let's just say it, the thing that's keeping us all awake at night, if we want to admit it or not, is are the robots coming for my job? First of all, tell us, is that true?
Honestly, I would be surprised if by the end of this episode, if we were not all replaced.
Oh my God.
It's not happening. Everyone needs to relax. It's that there is that fear, right? AI is going to replace my job. And let's be honest, there are some tasks and there are some jobs that, yes, eventually will be done by automation, by AI. My advice to individuals and to companies is looking at AI to say, how can this make me more efficient? How can this make me do my job better? And if we embrace it and educate ourselves on it, then we're going to have a lot of success with that. But I caution people on their extreme fear of this is just going to replace me entirely.
Right. And we were talking the other day about just how to use it to make you better at your job so that it doesn't, if you embrace it and embrace it early now, then you're going to be able to leverage it to make you better at your job. But if you resist, that's when you start to get in trouble, because it's all of the manual stuff. You're not advancing with the technology, and the technology is catching up to you and your skills.
Yeah, I'm sure there's someone that is watching this that perhaps had a hesitation towards email.
Right.
When email became a thing.
Right.
Oh, that'll never catch on.
Right.
I'm not doing that. I'm going to write out a hand letter and have Paul Revere deliver it.
Oh, totally.
Humans are adaptable, We've adapted to so many different things over the course of our individual lifetimes, and humans will adapt.
Right. It's just going to be like the internet or anything else that was like, whoa, scary. And now, none of us can live without it.
But educate yourself on it, because if you're going to use it, and you should use it, you need to understand how it works, what it's doing, what the difference between open and closed AI is.
Mm-hmm. All right, get into that, because it can be kind of a minefield for employers specifically because of like liability type situations. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so a great piece of advice, or I guess not advice, but something I heard from the American Staffing Association and the legislative group. Someone had asked, talking about getting sued. So if a candidate sues us for discrimination in the hiring process, and we have utilized an AI tool, is the company getting sued? The company's going to get sued. But can the company then sue the software company?
Okay.
So if someone sues Staffing Solutions, can we say, oh, it was this AI tool that we were using, it's their fault? The answer is, we don't know. Typical lawyer answer, right?
Well, yeah.
But what they will look at is, because the software company is going to say, you put in a bad prompt. So we need to look at what is the prompt that we are putting into that tool, and understanding how we're getting the candidates that we are. And then, these AI companies, they're doing their own data and research to ensure that things of that discrimination is not happening. But humans are still putting in a prompt to that tool. So you need to have good prompts going in to ensure that you're not being biased in what you're asking it to do.
Right. You need to really protect yourself. We were talking about this too, just your input, what you're asking the robots to do for you has to be clear and specific for you to get the outcome that you're looking for, and also to avoid, the booby traps that exist.
Yes, there are booby traps.
There are booby traps. Okay, so now we are at a segment that I love and we do every episode, but I thought we'd do it with a little twist. We usually call it HR Hot Seat, but today I want to do Hired or Fired.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and then you're going to tell me hired, like love it, I'm on board, or fired, like hate that.
Okay.
Okay. So blind copying someone on an email.
Hired. There's a time and a place for it.
Okay.
I think there are times when you need to communicate something and make someone else aware. Now, what I would say is I never BCC.
No. Okay.
I
so
don't.
Copying someone in is different.
Correct.
That's transparent.
But the blind copy, out of fear that someone else will mess this up, I will send the email, and if I need to make someone else aware, I'll forward what I sent, just to ensure that we don't accidentally hit a reply all here. So I'm going to say fired just out of strategic purposes.
I never thought about that. All right, requiring employees to turn on their cameras during Zoom or Teams calls.
Hired. It is accountability.
I don't want to talk to a blank screen.
No.
It just feels weird. Also, why are we not on the phone?
Yeah. That's actually an interesting point, because historically that would have been over the phone, so you didn't see them anyway.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be on camera, just call me. If we're going to do a video call, be on video.
100%. Unlimited PTO.
Fired. Humans need structure. And you're going to have that awkwardness of, okay, it's unlimited, I'm not taking any, or people that take advantage of the system and they've taken 5 months off. I just think humans need structure. I
don't think employers mean anything nefarious by it. I think they're trying to be flexible.
No, I think the poor execution of good intent. Mm-hmm. I think when unlimited PTO became a thing, the intent was correct, but we need structure.
All right, last one. Gen Z lingo in the office.
Interviewing. We're at a time where we have the most diverse workforce in terms of the generations, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we all need to be accepting of how we're communicating, the words that we say, and there's got to be a balance somewhere there. And I would say, know your audience. So if a Gen Z's talking to a baby boomer client, maybe the Gen Z person needs to flex a little bit to that client and vice versa. I think you just need to be very, very smart about how you're approaching that.
Totally. Just the open-mindedness and attempting to find ways to connect with people who are different from you. All right, Blake, this has been incredibly insightful. We want to leave people with some, actionable takeaways. So if we were to give leaders one thing to stop doing when they go to hire their next employees, what would that be?
Wanting to see one more candidate to compare them to. If you're defining what the ideal candidate looks like and Sam checks those boxes, make the offer.
Yeah, totally understand. Okay, so then, all right, what's one strategy they should start doing?
Let's ask our employees why this is a great place to work. And let's build a compelling marketing message so that our internal recruiting teams can reach out to Sam and say, I have a great opportunity, and here's why.
Blake, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all of this with us. And, leaders, there were some really solid takeaways about going out and finding candidates to hiring them to onboarding them. I think you gave everybody some actionable strategies to take home with them and try to implement at their own organizations.
I appreciate you having me.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of What's Up at Work. Now it's time to get out there and start building better workplaces. If you need help with where to start, ERC has your back. Head to yourerc.com for exclusive HR tools, insights, and resources to help you attract and retain top talent. And keep tuning into What's Up at Work for more strategies and secrets to help leaders like you create thriving workplaces. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.